Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. Brought to you by Blue Sky Business Consulting. We discuss 5 questions in about 15 minutes. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast. We're very excited to have you join us again and discuss another 5 questions with a leadership expert. Speaking of which, we have that leadership expert in the form of Jon Spiesman, and he is here in Salt Lake City. He is the CEO of One Step Better Leader, and I'm very excited to talk to him. Jon and I have known each other for a long time, and so we often swap ideas on leadership and whatnot. And so excited to have you here, Jon. Thanks so much for taking time to join me. Tell us a little bit more about the projects that you're working on.
Yeah. So, my business is executive coaching, right? And the reason I got into that is I really have a belief that leadership and business can be a force for good, right? Even though oftentimes you see a lot of news about corporations kind of being evil and maybe not being the best influence on society, but I think really well-run corporations can have a huge impact on employees, and on our society. And so I work to try to help companies to, create better places to work, to create better leaders, right? I want every leader to be the kind of leader that they can be. Would you believe that, only 32% of people actually say they're fully engaged at work? Right? Even though they spend more time at work than they do with their families, right? And I think that's a crime. And I would like to work with companies, and my target is really small to medium sized businesses, and that 10 million revenue to 300 million revenue range. That's kind of a sweet spot for me. But help them to be the best kind of leaders and be the best influence for their employees and their communities that they can be.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. Well, we're on a common mission that way, because I'm one that also agrees that we spend a third of our life at work. Make it enjoyable, and that falls to the leader to help it to create that environment. So that's awesome. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started with our questions then. So from a leader's perspective, occasionally a team or maybe an entire company kind of falls into a little bit of a lull, especially at this time of year. We're in January of a new year, and sometimes they kind of, get this kind of a lackadaisical approach. Jon, how can leaders infuse energy and enthusiasm into their teams?
I think the best way is to remind people of the why, right? Why is it that your company exists? Or maybe even a personal why, right? Why is it, if you want them to be energetic, your employees to be energetic, right? Where do you get your energy from, right? It's important for the company and for you to have a why behind what you do besides just making money, right? That purpose is important for people, I think, to stay motivated, especially during difficult times or slow times. And one of the most effective things I've seen and done personally, right, is to bring the customer into that equation, right? So if you serve customers, right, helping people to understand the impact that they have on other people, those customers, is a powerful way to motivate and to reward and teach the right behaviors, right, that you want. So, create a connection between every job and every person and that customer, and you'll never have to reach very far for inspiration for your team. But if everyone understands what they do and how they perform, how that affects the customer, that's a great position to be in. And you can be confident that those employees, when they're talking with customers, are going to represent you well.
That's a great point. I love that idea of making sure you stay connected with the customers, even if they're not necessarily customer facing. They can still be thinking that way. And if I were talking to a customer, how would I represent the company? And so I love that approach. Great advice. All right. Thank you. Question number 2. Jon, how can leaders promote learning in their companies?
I'm always a believer in, the company always takes their cues from leadership, right? So number 1 is make sure that you're learning, right? I mean, it's easy for us, especially those of us who have a few a few summers under our belt, right, to get comfortable. And I think it's important for us to be always learning and always stretching ourselves. And that sets the tone for people in the company, right? And don't be afraid to tell people where you're learning, right? Share with them what's your development goal, right? What's a new thing that you're working on? Um, the other thing, I think it's important to create space. And if you want people to learn, you can't have them operating at 110%. They
Right.
have to have some time in their schedule. And I've seen people be really effective with, for instance, creating, even on a factory environment, creating 30 minutes a day or an hour a week, right? That the line shuts down and they say, this is your time to work on improvement projects, improving yourself, improving your workplace.
Hmm.
Right? It seems like very counterintuitive, but you've got to provide that freedom for people to be able to explore, because learning can't be scripted, right? You got to have time. Learning can't be done in between, activities. Like, put your money where your mouth is, in other words, right? Demonstrate it for yourself, and then make sure that you're demonstrating that it's valuable to you by providing time and resources for people to do it.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, creating a space to do that is really important. Otherwise, it's unlikely that the employees are going to do it on their own. They can just have to create that for them. They don't want to get in trouble, whatever the reasoning may be. But that's fantastic. Great. Thank you. Question number 3, share one tip for delegation. How can we delegate more effectively?
Yeah, delegation is one of those things that I see a lot of people that I work with miss the target a little bit, and I think they tend to miss it in two important ways, right? That kind of overlap, and one of those is that they often will delegate only tasks, and that bypasses a learning opportunity and a development opportunity. What you really should be doing is delegate the responsibility for results to people, not just a task, right? Because that's the opportunity for you as a leader to be able to teach and to build capabilities, right? Allow them, to have the responsibility for the outcomes, not just a task. Right? They may fail, right? So you have to be careful with this, right? You can't delegate something that can't fail. Like, you've got to make sure that you have some guardrails, right, and controls. And this is the other place that people get it wrong, right? Sometimes people treat delegation as an event, not a process.
Yes.
You can't do a one-time thing, right? If you want to delegate something meaty and important, then you need to be checking in with them and have to have a process to make sure that things are going okay and that you're involved and can be there to help them with barriers or problems or questions that they might have. So, number one, delegate responsibility, not just tasks. Number two, delegation is not an event, it's a process.
I like that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I completely agree. It is not an event. It does not just happen one time. It's got to be a work in progress. I like that. All right. Question number 4. How can a leader better communicate the purpose or vision of the company or the team even to their team? How can they better communicate that?
Oh gosh, I think especially, remembering that it's your purpose, right? You know, it's farther away for your employees, and so don't just assume that they get it.
Right.
I think repetition is important, and often, I mean, for myself, repetition is as much for me sometimes as it is for them, because I can get distracted and chase shiny objects, or go after, avoid really important but uncomfortable things that I need to do in favor of some distraction, right? So, in some ways, it can be helpful. That repetition can be helpful for me, but also especially for my team. And build it into your routine. So, you probably already have annual planning processes. Make sure it's at the center of that. You probably have ways that you're communicating, setting and communicating priorities for the quarter or for the month. make sure it's in the center of that. Also, make sure that recognition, right, or checking in on things is part of your process. So show results, share successes and failures. Emphasize that whatever your vision is, it's not a destination, it's a journey. And so checking in with people about here's how we're doing, or here's a great example. Those are important reinforcements
Right.
that need to come from different directions all the time. So I think you have to feel like if you don't feel like you're a broken record, you're not doing it enough, I think.
That's a great point. I liked what you said a little bit earlier that the employees, they're one step removed from your vision, from your values, your purpose, your why. And for them, it's going to be a little bit harder to connect to that unless you're doing exactly what you said about kind of becoming a broken record and repeating it fairly frequently. You don't want to overburden them, but at the same time, you kind of do, because otherwise they'll forget quickly because it's not as passionate perhaps as it is with the owner. So I love that. Great comments. All right, our last question, the fun question. Tell us a favorite baseball memory.
I have so many. I come from a baseball family. My great grandfather and grandfather both played, in the minor leagues, the major leagues, and so I grew up with a ton of different stories. That I'd love to catch up with you sometime.
Yes, let's do it.
On, but you said favorite one, so takes just a second of background on this. So I grew up in northern Idaho, and there's not really a baseball team. Like there's no professional team.
Yeah.
I ended up following a lot as a kid, the Braves and the Cubs, because of TBS and WGN, was on TV, right?
Yes.
So those were kind of the teams that I followed, and I grew up with a lot of Cubs fans in particular. We moved to St. Louis in 2006. And so I think I made the very difficult journey from kind of being a Cubs fan to a Cardinals fan in 2006. And the reasons were they had a brand new stadium, Busch Stadium, in 2006. I had my son was 6 years old, 7 years old then. He was starting to play baseball and was really into it. And the Cardinals had this young guy named Albert Pujols, who was this exciting generational talent, and I was able to get tickets pretty regularly and go down to the games and stuff. So it was easy to kind of fall in and just say, all right, now I'm just going to follow the Cardinals. Right. And that year, and with a new stadium and everything, they won the World Series, right, over the Detroit Tigers. So great introduction to becoming a Cardinals fan. But the favorite moment was a few years later. It's 2011, and I'm on vacation with my family in California. We're in Disneyland, and the Cardinals are playing against the Texas Rangers. And it's game 6. It's an elimination game. It's late at night, and we're in California on Pacific time, and we're watching this game with the family. Game 6, elimination game, goes to extra innings. And in extra innings, David Freese hits a walk-off homer that wins game 6. And the Cardinals go on to win win the another championship by winning game 7. And just watching the whole family, especially my son, who was, rabid fan, just how excited they were, walk-off homer and all that stuff. It's one of those great moments.
Oh, that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. I really enjoy hearing these fun stories of, brushes with fame sometimes, or even just a great memory with their own family that's kind of centered around baseball. So I love that. Thanks for sharing that, John. That's a great story. And thank you so much again for taking time to be on the podcast today. How can people find you?
Best way to find me is on LinkedIn. So I have an active profile over there. I post 3 or 4 times a week. I post things about leadership or life. Love to engage with people on LinkedIn. And then, you can DM me there. You can click my profile, grab my email, or you can even set up a call right there on my profile if you want to chat. So LinkedIn's the best place to start. And always welcome a conversation about leadership.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Thanks again to you and also to all of you who are watching or listening. We appreciate your support and expect that you'll find the information that we share in these podcasts to be helpful to you and that you'll be able to find some practical application to what we're talking about. That's the whole objective. So thanks so much for joining us, everybody. We wish you a great day and a great new year. I know some of you are going to hear this a little bit later in January, but nonetheless, we wish everybody the best of success. Have a great day.
Thanks, Sean.
This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, go to teamengagementpodcast.com. We also invite you to follow or subscribe to our podcast wherever you may be listening or watching. Is your business thriving? Go to tbs-score.com to find out. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.